special business meeting of the District of Squamish on Tuesday, June 13th. Happens following Priest plus Squamish, Waomeo. Welcome to the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. There's an amended agenda in front of Council, looking for a motion to adopt the amended agenda. And just a further amendment, I am going to bring up the grant and aid application to the beginning of the meeting because people have to go to another meeting. So, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. So first on the agenda is the request from the Manton River Access Society with regard to some funding for to go to the completion of the campground. And there is a letter attached to the agenda from the the Squamish Community Foundation that offers an opportunity to leverage the $10,000 for two projects that they currently have. And I see Ashley in the audience, and she might be able to explain this a little bit better than I am. They have access to some funding for the Mountain River Access Society, as well as a project that the Arts Council put forward that did meet the criteria, but if we are providing funding, we can leverage that $10,000 that we're contemplating for the Mountain River Access Society into $20,000. 12 or so would go to the Mountain River Access Society, and 8 would go to the Arts Council. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
Okay, good. So that, I just wanted to put that out there as a possibility. So currently the request is that we contribute $10,000 to MRAS directly. However, if we go through the Community Foundation, we can leverage that to 20 and kill two birds with one stone. Any questions about that? No. Yes, Doug.
I'll move it.
We moved that that we
It's the one that's in the
yes, the
agenda.
one that's in the amended agenda. Okay, that council approved a request from Squamish Community Foundation, who have partnered with Community Foundations of Canada, participate in the Community Fund for Canada 150 grant program to provide matching funds in the amount of $10,000 to support the Mountain River Access Society and the Squamish Arts Council, and that $10,000 be funded from council contingencies. Councillor Race, is that what you moved? Seconded by Councillor Kent. Anyone want to speak to that? I'll speak to it really briefly. This came out of a conversation with the Community Foundation this week with Sarah and Ashley, and they had this sort of money, this opportunity for this money sitting there that they hadn't been able to access. So I thought it was great that they brought it forward as a way to basically leverage and get probably more than double the money out of both of these projects, and literally get more money. So thanks for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks. So we have two timed items. First up is the development variance permit number 127-41020 Government Road. I'll just read this brief statement before we start. The proponent and members of the public will be given the opportunity to be heard or present written submissions respecting the following requested variance to the District of Squamish zoning bylaw. Variance to section 16.3, maximum height. Accessory building, proposed to increase the accessory building height from 4.58 meters to 15 meters to allow the construction of a farm building for agricultural purposes. After I have confirmed that it is your turn to speak, please approach the podium and commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. Please note that speakers will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council. Over to planning staff.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jonas Malinskis. I'm the Director of Community Planning, and I'd like to introduce Brian Daly, who is a new staff member of the district at the Community Planning Department and has been with us for 6 weeks now. And Brian will present the application.
Thank you for the introduction, Jonas. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here today to present a development variance permit application requesting an increase in height to the maximum allowable height for agricultural buildings. The subject property is located at 41020 Government Road. Zoning is Residential Rule 2, which was adopted in May 2016. The property is located in the Agricultural Land Reserve. The adjacent property to the south is zoned Assembly District and has the Easter Seals Camp. Adjacent properties to the north are zoned Residential Rule 2. There is a single-family dwelling unit adjacent to the northwest of the property. The remainder of the land bordering this property to the north is farmland. The CN rail line borders the property to the east. All the adjacent properties are also located in the agricultural land reserve. The proponent has applied to increase the maximum height of an accessory building from 4.58 meters or 15.02 feet to 7.3 meters, 23.95 feet. With the consent of the applicant, staff are recommending an increase to 15 meters or 49 feet. The proposed increase in height is to allow the accessory farm building to be constructed to its proposed height of 7.3 meters. Section 2.4.7 of the British Columbia Ministry of Agricultural Guide for Bylaw Development and Farming Areas suggests that height restrictions on similar farm structures be no less than 15 meters. As this lot is located in the agricultural land reserve and the accessory farm building is to be used for agricultural purposes, staff recommends varying the maximum accessory building height to be in line with this section of the Agricultural Guide for Bylaw Development and Farming Areas. As drafted, the variance would apply to any future agricultural use building on the property as well. This is a rendering of the north elevation of the accessory building with the portion of the building requiring a variance highlighted. This is an aerial view of the lot showing the approximate location of the proposed accessory building. Legislated and district processes for engagement were followed for this application. No requests for a public information meeting were received. Staff recommend that the development variance permit number 127 for the property at 41020 Government Road be approved and that the mayor be authorized to execute the permit. Staff alternatively recommends that the development variance permit number 127 for the property at 41020 Government Road be approved for an increase in height from 4.58 meters to 7.3 meters, and that the mayor be authorized to execute the permit. Any questions?
Thanks. Any questions for staff for clarification purposes? Councilor Riz?
Thank you. So if I read this correctly, this variance would be not just for this building, but it says for future agricultural buildings, so an indeterminate number of other additional buildings?
Just on this site, as long as they're for agricultural purposes.
And if they're built, and they were for agricultural purposes, and the property changes hands and the next owner repurposes them for heavy equipment maintenance or something like that, is that just like any other zoning infraction, then we'd have to get an injunction to stop them from doing that?
If I may, the buildings wouldn't, the future property owners, if that was the scenario, would have to get a variance to the height if they wanted to use the building for something else. Many jurisdictions with agriculture as sort of a dominant use adopt the guidelines and the ministry guidelines for farm buildings, so that's always a risk out there, that someone else may use a building for something else, but legally that wouldn't be possible, so the correction process would be an injunction.
Thank you.
Any other questions for clarification purposes?
Well, just to kind of
Councillor
follow up on Councillor Lee's, they can build 12 of these buildings?
They could build as many accessory buildings for agricultural purposes as needed. I think the only provision that would stand in the way would be the lot coverage provision. But we,
Extra height goes to anything that they build there, not just this building.
it has to be for agricultural purposes. Yes.
Any other questions for clarification purposes? Can you just articulate the difference between the two proposed motions? One is basically bringing it up to agricultural land reserve standards, the other is specific, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Don't see any more clarification. Would the proponent like to speak to it? Please come up and state your name and street address.
Hi, my name is Greg McDougall, 41020 Government Road, and I'm the applicant, or one of the applicants on the property. And just like to maybe give a little bit of background to this. We purchased the property from the Lions Club that was sort of surplus for the camp about 4 years ago, I guess. And the farm adjacent to us, that was 10 acres, and the farm adjacent to us came up for sale. So the property that we're actually applying for the variance for is on a 10-acre parcel. and the 22 acres that that are actually going to be farmed, for the most part, are the adjacent property. So it just works out that the best site for the building, accessory building, or the shop building is on our property, but the farm predominantly is the 22 acres adjacent that my son-in-law and my daughter are partnering with us, and they actually live in the farmhouse there. Our concept is to develop a sort of farm-to-table type concept. We think that we have a really unique opportunity, given that that property is situated so close to the downtown area, and that it can be a really valuable component for developing agriculture in the valley. So we're really pleased that you guys are going to consider the variance, because it's necessary, obviously, for an agricultural building to have that type of height, so we can get equipment in and out of it. And I think it also conforms with the provincial standards. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this variance? I will ask for a second time, is there anyone who would like to speak to this variance? I'll ask for a third time, is anyone who would like to speak to this variance? Don't see any more. Anything to add from the planning department's perspective? No? Councillor Elliott.
I'd like to move the recommended motion that we approve the variance for this farmhouse.
And the variance is from 4.58 meters to 15 meters, correct? Seconded by Councillor Kent. Discussion? Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, I'm really excited that we're going to have a working farm within the district of Squamish. And so pleased that you decided to keep it and use it actually for its intended use. I think this is really exciting, and I think having the infrastructure to support the success of that farm is going to be really important. So I'm happy to support this variance.
Thank you, Councillor Kent.
Well said, and I've driven by there many times because my kids go to school up past here, and I've looked at that site and hoped that somebody would be doing what you plan to do, and that's so terrific. We welcome it.
My understanding the cows have arrived.
Yeah. There.
Councillor Fry.
Yeah, also, in driving by, it's really nice to see it being done, for sure. That's the-
Yeah, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to our second timed item, development permit number 441, 1365 Pemberton Avenue. And I'll just read this short statement. The proponent and members of the public will be given the opportunity to be heard or present written submissions respecting the following requested variances to the District of Squamish zoning bylaw. Section 41.2, location of parking facilities. Proposal to vary the number of cash and loose space limitation from 4 parking spaces to 8 parking spaces. Section 42.5, off-street loading. Design criteria, proposal to reduce the loading bay vertical clearance height from 4.3 meters to 3.84 meters. After I've confirmed that it is your turn to speak, please approach the podium and commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. Please note that speakers will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council. I will turn it over to the planning department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carrie Hamilton, planner with the Community Planning and Infrastructure Department, presenting to you today development permit 441, located at 1365 Pemberton Avenue, recently named Vantage. DP 441 is proposed in place of the old Diamond Head Professional Building. The Diamond Head Medical Clinic moved locations in 2012, and the building served its last business tenants in 2014. The building has remained vacant for close to 3 years. With recent rezoning changes proposed for downtown, it is important to note that DP 441 was received November 1st of 2016, with a pre-application dating back to June 2016. This means that the design of the development was well underway before Long Bus 2017 was first presented to Council in February of 2017 to present the district's interest in second-story office and streetscape setbacks. So here is the 2016 aerial view of the proposed site. The subject lands are zoned downtown commercial C4 and are within the downtown land use. Adjacent zones to the north, south, and east are all downtown commercial C4. The site is surrounded on 3 sides with commercial buildings or parking. DP 441 is within the development permit area 2 for downtown. The DP application seeks to allow for the construction of a 6-story mixed-use residential commercial development consisting of 73 residential units on the top 5 floors, as you can see here in blue, an option for 1 or 2 commercial units on the ground floor with a combined area just shy of 400 meters squared, as you can see here in yellow, the residential and commercial building entrances off Pemberton Avenue in green, and a 2-story parking garage with 1 level partially underground in orange. The total height of the building is 21.5 meters, 1.5 meters above the C4 zoning height. This is a permitted density bonus for buildings that comply with a higher climate zone 6 insulation value as determined under the building code. The main materials include brick cladding system, metal cladding, cast in place concrete, and interior wood finish fiber cement. Accents include strips of vibrant green fiber cement and hemlock stained wood soffit. The building frontage and commercial unit along Pemberton Avenue are accented with timber curtain wall and glulam columns with a glass canopy that extends the length of the property sidewalk. Green screens are being proposed to reduce the massing and increase the aesthetic of the ground floor level parking garage. The development has designed an internal traffic signalized parking garage entrance. This unique design accommodates a reduced entrance width from 4 driveways to 2. This design provides more space for the lobby entrance and reduces the streetscape drive aisle width almost in half, from 40 feet to 24 feet. The development also includes a 2nd-story contemporary courtyard, which includes balcony planters and both balsam fir and vine maple trees. The courtyard is designed to meet the Squamish natural elements of wind and snow and provide seating areas for courtyard activation. DP 441 was presented to the District of Squamish Advisory Design Panel on February 16, 2017. The committee was highly supportive of the project, with a few important revisions left to be resolved with staff. Some of the major modifications made to this development include decreasing the original parkade entrance from 4 lanes to 2, modifications to the courtyard to address wind and snow removal concerns, and increased landscaping and activation for both the streetscape lobby and courtyard. ADP meeting minutes can be found in attachment 2 of the report. DP 441 largely conforms to C4 zoning requirements with the exception of 2 variances. The first is a variance requested to section 41 off-street parking, subsection 41.2, to increase the number of commercial cash and loop parking stalls from 4 stalls to 8. In the original application, the applicant proposed a variance for 4 of 8 commercial stalls, not eligible for cash and loop, as the required stalls would impact the proposed commercial and bike mezzanine space. Staff suggested instead to arrange a shared commercial parking agreement with an adjacent parking lot owners, as this would comply with the zoning bylaw and require no variance. The applicant was unsuccessful with this option, leading staff to explore a different variance solution, which would vary the cash and loop provision to include the 4 stalls requirement for a total of 8 cash and loop parking stalls. Staff are supportive of this option as it accommodates additional employment space and provides an additional $24,000 to a future central parking location downtown, for a total of $48,000 from this development. Staff also acknowledged that street parking is available on the south side of Pemberton Avenue. Secondly, the applicant has requested a variance of the loading bay height from the district standard of 4.3 meters to the City of Vancouver standard of 3.84 meters. For context, the largest U-Haul residential moving truck height is 3.53 meters. A typical small-sized commercial loading vehicle requires 2.3 height clearance and a medium-sized 3.8 height clearance. Should the variance not be supported, the applicant would have to spend significant costs to further underground the level 2 parking garage to meet the District of Squamish loading bay height requirement. In summary, the proposal generally meets DPA 2 form and character guidelines. Highlights include the high quality of building material, continuous canopies, extensive landscaping, and reduced parking garage impact on Pemberton streetscape. It partially meets guidelines as the development provides a front-facing open courtyard instead of a continuous building front setback and varied roof line. DP 441 was listed on the online development showcase and a development information sign posted on the site as per the district land development communications policy. One request for a public information meeting was received, but without further comment. Variance notices were mailed to properties within 100 meters of the subject site, and no comments have been received. Staff recommendations are for council to authorize DP 441, subject to landscape bonding, registration of a flood covenant, and the provision of 48,000 cash in lieu in place of the 8 commercial parking spaces. And that DP 441 include the variances for rear setback and loading bay. Thank you and welcome comments and questions.
Council, are there questions for staff for clarification purposes? Councilor Reyes?
Yeah, thank you. So it's with a bit of nostalgia that I look at this. This was the site of my old office, which if I read the plans correctly, my office space that I toiled in for many years has evolved to a parking stall. But, such is progress, I guess. I had 2 questions. One is with respect to the entrance off Pemberton Avenue for vehicles. Will that be locked or secured in any way? In other words, is there some kind of a door coming down or chain link or something that you see in some other developments? Or is it just open?
My understanding is that it is gated, but that it is not right at the lot line. It is pushed back.
So there's just kind of a space off the street and then something comes down to stop the traffic. The second is, excuse me, can you go back to one of the overheads for the landscaping? It was in the landscaping plan that I noticed it. I'm not sure if...
This one?
No, it's an overhead. Not of the courtyard, for the whole project. No, that wasn't it either. Oh, well, that's the one.
Okay.
So the green strip, I take it, because in the report it talks about the side and interior setbacks. I think it's about 1.5 meters. So I take it that's not right out to the lot line. And I know when sitting in my office, the west side of that building, the existing building, was a fire separation wall, and so it was all cinder block, and there was no windows on that side except at the very front where the setback was for the next building. But I take it this isn't the case here. There's no firewall separation between this and perhaps the next building at the Bank of Montreal, for example, that space redeveloped for a similar building. There would be no need for fire separation.
So through you, Mayor, I believe what they propose 1.5 meter setback, and that's a requirement of the C4 zone to allow for buildings to have or for the adjacent property to build as well. So it shouldn't impact adjacent buildings and shouldn't impact a fire separation wall.
So the adjacent
Sorry.
building in C4 could build to 1.5 to their lot line, therefore there'd be 3 meters between
Yeah.
this balcony and this balcony. Correct?
Yes. Does that answer your question?
Does that answer your question?
Well, I guess so. So the net result of that, if that next site did redevelop, and actually it's on 3 sides, so potentially there could be redevelopment on at least 2 of those sides, maybe even 3 sides over time. You could have buildings within 3 meters, give or take, on either side of those 3 sides, which is like the width of the corridor trail, practically. And is that the same down Cleveland Avenue as well? Same regulation?
It is. It is the same regulation. I'm not. It's more of a building code question, but it is from our understanding that's an allowable. The 3 meters is allowed for fire access, and that's why it's supported in the zone as a 1.5 meter setback.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really nice presentation. I like the shading idea that you do there. Yeah, I had that same question when it was at the ADP. It just seemed so weird, eh? And then when I was in Vancouver a little while ago, I looked around and sure enough, there's buildings 10 feet apart with windows facing each other that are 8, 10 stories. Because you picture the person in the bank building and building 6 stories right beside them, and everybody's going to lose their view. But I guess that's buyer beware. Now, the covered walkway along Pemberton there, that was really key to me, and I see it's continual all the way. I mean, it was kind of hard to, yeah. So that's gonna protect most of the sidewalk from snow, right? Hopefully. And so that was a change from the original. And the driveway, at the ADP meeting, the ADP talked about that driveway, and so I'm happy to see that's changed. And I know everybody at the ADP loved it.
You have a question, Councillor Craig? We're
Well,
trying to get clarification questions at the
Yeah, well, I'm just clarifying what's been changed,
Okay.
you know, and so, and then the green walls are, yeah, so that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott.
The courtyard, is the access to those apartments off the courtyard, or is there an internal hallway?
Yeah, so there is the access is through the courtyard and an internal hallway. So if you can see from this site plan, you can see that it's open from the roof here, and that there's a hallway that wraps around and inside. So they'll have access from there.
Okay. And in that courtyard, is there just like flat green space that like someone could put a blanket down and sit, or do they have to sit in on benches? And is there any grass, or is it all very structured?
I think the intention of the design is that they have benches, so that's where people would sit, and that the rest of it would just be landscaped, and it's kind of raised higher up, so that you don't have anything seeping, you wouldn't have any of the vegetation seeping into the courtyard. So I don't think there's access to sit on the grass, to answer your question, but there is seating available.
So I noticed in the ADP minutes, someone asked about what children are supposed to do if they live in this building, because they don't sit on benches. And I'm just wondering if that's been contemplated about, is there a space for a child to sit or play?
I know that through how the applicant addressed some of those comments was to provide more activation. So originally, the planting in the front that I'll use this cursor, that you'll see here, actually extended all the way into the courtyard more, and it wasn't as well used. So the idea was that they wanted to activate this space and allow for people to sit here and see the viewscape onto Second. So that was what the change that the applicant had made, to kind of activate this space a little bit more.
But it sounds like it's not very sort of family friendly. It's built for adults. That's what it sounds like to me.
So no, there's no children's play apparatus or
Not even a play apparatus, just grass. Kids like to sit on grass.
No.
No.
This is a very adult space. Okay.
Thank you. Quick question, was it ever explored with the proponent about doing some sort of car share to make up for the parking variance?
That has been discussed with the applicant. At this time, the district doesn't have any, there isn't car share right now, and so it's not something that we've been pursuing. But it could be a
I
future.
think it's something council's been pursuing. Jonas?
If I may, definitely, it's something that we're interested in, and we've been talking about maybe setting up a system where developments could pay into, because one of the things that we've learned from some of the car share co-ops is that you need to have a visible location. So, a car share inside the building here might not work as well as a car share that is visible for the community. So I think the discussions that we've had today was looking at setting up a fund where a developer could pay into, until there is a car share in Squamish, into attracting a car share or bringing a car share over. But we have not pursued it as per individual development to provide car share spaces.
Council, any more questions? See any, would the proponent or anyone else like to speak to this application? Please come out and state your name and street address.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Edward Archibald, 39271 Falcon Crescent. I'm going to address a couple of the items.
And are you the proponent?
Yes, I am. Sorry. Councillor Race, in terms of the setback, the building conforms, as Carrie had mentioned, to the development guidelines. The setbacks from the building conform to, excuse me, to the building code. There's 10 feet between the properties, so we have 5 feet setback and then 5 feet setback, and that is what the building code indicates as the required separation for fire, etc. To Councillor Pryor, in terms of the overhang, yes, it does go all the way, and it was addressed from the ADP comments. And in respect to the courtyard, Councillor Elliott, we did expand it. One of the issues with the planting is the configuration of the building looks straight down Howe Sound, and the advice of our landscape architects was a material like grass per se would not necessarily be very long-term. It would require more maintenance and it would die more often than it would not. So most of the planting there is more of a hardy material to handle the Squamish climate at the end of the day. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the variances of this development permit? I will ask for a second time. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the development variances? And I'll ask for a third time. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the development permit variances? Seeing no one, is there anything to add? Planning Department? Council, what's your pleasure? You'll move the motion with the two requested variances? Moved by Councillor Pryor, seconded by Councillor Kent. Councillor Pryor, would you like to speak to your motion?
I'm really quite impressed with the building, and I know it has a few issues, but it shouldn't be nice to see that in a town snazzied up that much. And it's right beside a shopping mall, so it'd be nice to have density right there. And so, nice to see it.
Councillor Kent?
Likewise, I think it's going to be a really nice piece to have in that location. I have one concern is during the construction phase is because of the inflow and out of the shopping mall there, and that tight corners and all of the things that occur in that space as it is now. It's going to require some ingenious planning, I think, on your part to control that intersection and be able to make use of it at the same time as your construction is occurring, but hopefully that will occur.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Elliott?
I'm not really keen on not having any of the commercial parking spots within the building. I think the only reason I'll support this is because it's sitting next to the mall, and regardless of the fact that they didn't have an agreement with the people that own the parking lots, that's where people are going to park to access the commercial on this site. If it was anywhere else, I wouldn't support the variance in the parking.
Councillor?
Thank you. The building, I mean, there certainly are attractive features to the building and innovative and imaginative. I recognize that, but going back to my line of questioning, I do wonder about us and our present legislation that allows buildings like this that will be literally 10 feet apart, assuming something else builds beside it or behind it, and what that means for the second building, or well, the last building, I guess, is the one that succeeds, but in Cleveland Avenue, and whether we should be considering stepping back the residential from the footprint a little bit more to allow a little bit more space for living quarters. If this was all commercial, I don't think it would be a problem, but when you're talking about residential with decks and windows and so forth that close together, it's ultimately not a particularly nice feature. However, it complies with the legislation. I recognize that, and so I will support the motion.
Thank you. I'll speak briefly to it. With regard to the development permit, I think it meets our guidelines generally. I think it'll be a really interesting, attractive building. With regard to the variances, I can live with the height variance on the loading bay. I wish we were a little bit further along in how we're dealing with some of these parking variances. So the next one that comes forward, we need to be a little more creative about how we are inspiring some car share and some other options to make the parking variances more palatable. But I think this will be a real animator of that end of town, and I think we'll start to create a whole nother vibe in that area, which is currently and has been for many years a bit of an eyesore. So I will be supporting the DP with the variances. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? If any, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on, we are real estate, Adventure Center parking lot, Sea to Sky Forestry Center Society lease. And I would like to acknowledge that we have a free person of Squamish in the chamber. Welcome back, Mayor Lonsdale.
Are we hiding Neil? No. Go for it. Almost there. Why is that not on the screen? Put that in the fashion. There we go. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Neil Plum, Manager of Real Estate. I'm here with Ken Pickering from the Sea to Sky Forest Center Society. And tonight we're here to talk about the proposed resolution from staff to council for the district to approve the business plan, site development plan, and building design for the proposed Adventure Center parking lot Forestry Museum, Society's Museum. And we're looking for the mayor and corporate officer to be able to go ahead and execute the lease agreement that's attached to your report. So Ken and I are just going to walk you through the highlights and answer any questions that you may have. So in your council package, you've got a development plan. The proposed lease area is just under 2,500 square meters of land. And as you'll see in the drawings, there's parking under the main floor and at the rear of the facility. The parking approach is that way maximizes the aesthetics of the facility on Loggers Lane. And there's a shared access point between this facility and the other parking areas in the Adventure Center that's going to ensure the safety is at its utmost. So this is a rough outline of the proposed lease area, which is fairly similar, I guess almost identical to the one that we were talking about before we first came in. So there hasn't really been any adjustments to that. It's identical. Identical. And actually, no, we just scaled it back a little bit for the road allowance, that's fine. So here's a drawing that is again included in your package. It shows the proposed facility here with no parking in the front here. There would be parking under the building and in the rear here. This parking area here is just shown for illustration to show what the parking would be like at the remainder of the Adventure Center. And down here you can see a little bit of an idea what the building would look like. And here's some elevations as well. So the proposed building is the new timber frame facility. It's 13,000 square feet in total. There's a 5,700 square foot main floor with 1,600 square feet above that. And then also underneath it, a 5,700 square foot parking area and storage area. The proposed building includes a variety of features, including a theater, classroom spaces, and historic and modern logging equipment displays. And there's also a courtyard there to connect it to the external environment as well. In your package, there is a business plan for your review, and just the quick highlights. We won't walk you through the whole thing. We'll leave that up for questions if need be. But basically, the structure is anticipated to cost roughly $2.5 million. Sources of funding is coming from a variety of different locations, but you will notice that there's no financing, mortgage financing in that is proposed. It's mainly coming from industry sector and private sector donations, some provincial funding, and some federal government funding, and with the district providing the land at a nominal fee. It says it's zero. It's actually, I think it's $1 in the
It's $1,
dollar account. Sorry. So
What are dollars?
the high level of the business plan is there's projected sales over the first 3 years starting at just over 200,000 and reaching 450,000 by year 3, based on right now $10 a visit on average for the visitors. Staff looked at it, and we had some discussions with the society and asked them to tweak a couple things, but at the end of the day, we liked it because it started out small. It wasn't overly ambitious in the early stages. There was a reflective reality of starting up a new entity. The cost per visit was relatively nominal, and that they seemed to have taken into account, the appropriate levels of labor and that type of stuff. So for that reason, staff are prepared to move forward with the recommendation in front of council tonight. And Ken, if need be, can speak a little more to how they're partnering with different entities in the community here. So basically, what's happening here is a few years ago we came forward to council with a proposed offer to lease structure. Council endorsed the use of the lease area for the museum, conditional on council reviewing a business plan and detailed site plans. And so what we're doing tonight is endorsing that. Council is giving approval to that. We're moving out of an offer to lease scenario, which had conditions attached to it, to a formal lease scenario now with the society. The term in the agreement is 25 years. The lease fee is $1, as endorsed earlier by council. But what we've adjusted the agreement to reflect is that until the building actually goes into construction phase, that the district would continue to be able to use the parking lot there, which is obviously important at this point in time. So back to the motion. Again, just that in the first part of that motion is just acknowledging that council is on board with the proposed business plan and development plan, and then the second part of that motion is there to just give the mayor and corporate officer the authorization to execute the lease agreement with the society after we just do our statutory advertising. Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah,
Pickering, do you
good
wanna-
evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ken Pickering. I'm the president of the Forest Society. Have been off and on for the last 5 years. This project has been in the works for almost 10 years. We think we bought a really good project to Squamish. It's going to benefit Squamish, and it's not only our heritage and our thing. It's for educational purposes, so the public and the people can understand the ongoing benefits of a healthy forest industry, because without the forest industry we wouldn't have hiking, biking and fishing and camping and all the outdoor recreation that Squamish is now famous for. Having said that, the Forest Center will be a great complement to the Mining Museum, the Gondola and the Railway Museum. You all have a package in there, and it contains a site plan and business plan, and I will not go over it point by point. I will just say that it took a lot of work and 3 years of work to put that together. The figures in there have been hashed around. We got them from Tourism Squamish, from the Mining Museum, from the Railway Museum, all of that. And we believe that the figures in there are realistic and achievable. Our goal is to build this forest center with no mortgage and no cost to the District of Squamish except for the leased land. And the only other thing, we will have our website up and running in another few weeks, and we'll begin fundraising as soon as the lease is signed. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions at this point? Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, it's a really interesting project. Just some points of clarification, Neil. In reading the business plan for the Forestry Center, it talks about a 30-year lease, but your report says 25 years, so I just wanted to square up that we're talking 25 years.
Okay, we'll double check that.
As far as you know, Ken, it's 25 or 30?
I thought it was 30, but I'm not going to argue
We
about
actually have
5
in the
years.
agreement
It'll be 90
25. They're expecting 30. It's at council's pleasure to decide whether they want to adjust that term this evening or not.
It might cost $2 if it's 30.
That's right. Okay, so that's something that just needs to be aligned.
Yeah.
So the other thing, the lease, in reading the lease, it mentions on page 119 in my agenda that there might be a restaurant, but the business plan is silent on a restaurant. I'm just wondering, Mr. Pickering, that's part of the plan for a restaurant in there, or no?
Not at this point, it isn't. No, we don't have any plans of that yet.
Okay.
All of that, I think all of this would be dealt with at a development plan and what do you call it? Not a site plan, but a business building plan. We'll have to come in front of
The
council
zoning
again.
allows for a restaurant, does it not?
It does, yeah, we just wanted to put it into use as a potential, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and that was my other question, this all comes through like development permits and would go to ADP and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff?
Correct.
You done?
Yep, I might have another question.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Clarification purposes? Councillor Prime?
Well, for clarification, so it is 30 years, is that what it came to?
I had 25 in here, but that could have been a mistake somewhere along the way, so I think that it's up to Mr. Pickering to express if he's seeking a 30-year term. Council can,
Yeah, we're seeking a 30-year term.
council can amend the agreement.
See, show of hands, 30, sounds good?
Yeah, 30.
People have voted.
I won't be here to see the end of
It's
it.
called participatory governance. Good job. I think 30's fine. I anticipate it going further than 25 years, or even 30 years, hopefully, so. Councillor Pratt?
Well, just a couple of comments. It's, very impressive to see you guys putting all this together. I mean, I know you've been working on it for a long time, the whole group of you there, and it just really is impressive. And I'm so proud of the forest industry bringing this forward because, the town's changing. And you don't see the forestry industry everywhere like you used to. And it's really good to see this come forward, and I really appreciate that.
Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, just a couple more questions. We've talked a lot about wood waste lately in this council, and it says that the building's being heated by wood. Is it wood or wood waste?
I don't think we've got that, but it'd be wood pellets we were talking about, a big burn on wood pellets and that, so I
Um,
remember that.
And question for you, Neil. I know in the integrated flood hazard management plan, there was some question about whether the dike would be on the outside of this building or on the inside, and perhaps it was designated special study area, but did we work that out in what's coming forward?
So Mayor, that hasn't been worked out to my knowledge, so what we've done is, the group really wanted to move forward with an agreement knowing that they could go get the funding and the financing. So my expectation would be that when we get into the building, the permitting stage, these types of issues would come back to the forefront. But for the time being, they'd like to be able to move forward with the comfort of knowing they have a lease agreement, so.
I thought we had determined that the dike would go on the channel and not up the road.
Yeah, the last recommendation of the engineers on that flood management hazard plan was along the channel.
Yeah, that's what I
just
remember
wasn't
too,
sure
but we
where
can
that-
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was a special study area still, but anyways.
Gary, do you remember?
I share your recollection, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I'm correct.
I believe the integrated flood hazard management plan is coming back to council next week or the
Next
week
week
after.
for discussions.
Yeah. Did I see a hand over here?
Yes, I know you've been at this for a long time, I respect your tenacity. And your willpower to drive this forward, and I think it's a great homage to the industry that basically got Squamish on the map in the first place, and thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ray?
Success.
Thank you. Could you go back to the overhead with the parking? I'm just curious about the parking. Is it intended, once the building is built, that that's exclusive use parking
Through
for the
Marin.
project?
No, this would be the Adventure Center parking through here. So the parking is proposed to be under the facility and at the rear of the facility. So this was just showing what the adjacent land would be looking like. So
Oh, okay.
that's not exclusive
It's
use,
not in our lease, that
not
part.
in the lease area.
But in behind the building, when I looked at the overhead, it looked like those were tables and benches or picnic benches or something like that. That's intended to be a parking area?
Through that, yeah, through further discussion that we had with the society, we acknowledged that the parking would be at the rear end of the building.
That portion would be exclusive use parking?
Yeah.
Thanks. I too am really pleased to see this in front of us. I know Mayor Lonsdale would know that the Adventure Center won some awards for building with wood, and so I'm kind of expecting that this building will too. But no, I'm really pleased to see this in front of us. Look forward to the day when we can actually break some ground and
Yes.
see it happen. So kudos to your tenacity and your vision, and look forward to seeing it happen.
Thank you.
I don't see any more comments.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
Now I'll make a comment, because it is a long time, and I can remember working with you years ago, about 10 years ago actually, tried to get this going, and then the forest economy went into the tank. And I bailed out and went into politics, but you've stuck with it and brought this thing to close to fruition. So congratulations to you and the
Thank you,
committee.
I will call the question. It's been moved and seconded?
No.
Oh, goodness me.
Move.
Move, just to confirm that the district is satisfied with the financial viability of the City Sky Forestry Center, approves the site development plan, build design, business plan, and the lease area proposed for the Adventure City parking lot by the City Sky Forestry Center Society, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the lease agreement with City Sky Forestry Center Society, substantially in the form in the report from Real Estate Services dated June 13th, subject to publishing statutory notices.
And just for clarification, at least for 30 years.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's been moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Cryer. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody, for your work.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
And we are now at the end of our meeting, and motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor, I'll second that. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Are we not doing the John Harvey?
We already did it.
Number 1.